Alright, I thought I'd make a quick video. Had an issue with my printer. Wasn't extruding, and it wasn't retracting the filament back into the AMS. So, what I did was I removed... No, that's not it. My nozzle. So I removed my nozzle, and I did a cold pull. So what I did basically was unplug the nozzle, the three connectors, took the nozzle out, just wiggle it down, pull it out, and I got an Allen key. I think it was a 1mm Allen key. Heated it up with my lighter, shoved it in the hole on the top, melted the plastic, let it cool, and then yanked it out with some pliers. Now, I did get that out, and I put the nozzle back in, but unfortunately, it still wasn't retracting, and it still wasn't extruding. So I had no idea what was going on. Now, I decided that I would take out the, the extruder, the gears. That was a bit difficult. I had to get the PTFE tube out of here, but because the filament was stuck, it did take a bit of force to get out, but I did eventually get it out because you've got to press it down and then pull the PTFE tube. I did have pliers, but I did use some paper towel, wrapped it over the PTFE tube, used the pliers for grip, and then pulled it out. Disassembled everything, which was fairly simple. It's all just screws. With a bit of common sense, all you need is an Allen key. I think it's a 2mm Allen key. It all just comes apart, all unscrews, no dramas. Now, I noticed that there was a bit of a blockage in there. I could see the filament just sitting in there. The gears also, they wouldn't spin, and these are supposed to spin freely without any resistance. So they should spin. There should be no resistance. If there's resistance on the gear, and if you look in there, you should be able to see right through that tiny little hole in there. You should be able to see it right through. And if you see any filament blocking that hole, then you most likely have a blockage. Now, I did push the Allen key through very carefully as to not damage the tiny little gear inside. Pushed it until it popped, and it basically gave birth to this tiny piece of filament. Yes, that is the filament right there. Now, that's what caused my blockage. Quite unfortunate. I don't know why. I was using the Sunlu matte black PLA filament. Don't know if that caused the issue. Maybe if the filament wasn't true to size, or... Look, I really don't know what caused the blockage, but if you do your nozzle, you unblock the nozzle, and it's still not extruding, then it's likely the gears have some filament stuck in there. Like I said, it's all fairly simple, all fairly straightforward to put it back together. This will basically just sit inside here, like that, and then these two screws here just go back in here, and then I could put the nozzle back on the extruder assembly, and I'll put it all together. I'll make it one component. I'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like once it's all back together. So this, again, I've just taken off the screws for this little unit here. I think this is the sensor, the filament sensor. So I've taken the two screws off. I'll put it back together. I'll show you guys what it looks like once it's all together. But again, just remember, that should spin freely without any resistance. So if there is resistance, then you've got a problem. I'll pause the video, get back, and we'll continue, and I'll show you what it looks like once it's all assembled. Alright, so we've assembled it back together again. I'll get my trusty Allen key to guide you guys. So we've popped these two screws back in here with this smaller Allen key. That holds the sensor in place, just like so. And then you've got the two hex screws or hex keys, Allen keys, whatever you guys want to call them. 2 of them sit right there, and that holds the nozzle back in place. Now, obviously you've got to route the cables down the side, just like so, and then reconnect everything back together again. It's fairly straightforward, it's not as confusing as it looks, and initially when I went to do this, I was like, nah, stuff that, I'll just buy another extruder unit, but then I'm like, no, wait a minute, I can't wait. I want to get it sorted now. Let's open it up. Let's have a look. So it's all, put it all back together again. Again, the gears are freely moving. No problem. No resistance. Everything's all good. Everything's put back together. It's only 3 screws to hold it in place. So if we go into the printer here, now I'll put my torch on so you guys can see. It might not be the best focus there. But essentially it's just 3 screws. I think it's 1, 2, 3. So when you put the unit back in place, put it in place, put the 3 little screws where they belong. Make sure you put your PTFE tube and your filament back in. You can probably, for the sake of sorting this out, I don't know what's happened, so I'm going to cut that filament, start again. I'll put the PTFE tube, so I'll roll the filament back out into the AMS. I'll put the PTFE tube into the extruder unit once it's all assembled. This guy here, if you're not sure how to take him out, you just need to unscrew that black screw a little bit. Just enough, it doesn't have to come out all the way, just enough to allow it to pass that wall there. I might have scratched the wall a bit. That's my bad, but that's all good. It is what it is. Yeah, so you just loosen up that screw until that filament cutter comes out. Put it back in, I'll screw it all back in, and then I'll take a quick video once that's all done. So sit tight and we'll get back to you in a sec. Alright, so it's all put back together. Essentially it's just 3 screws to get everything back in place. So you've got this screw up here, you've got this one here, and you've got this one behind the cables, just there. Now obviously those cables have to be plugged back in again. Just make sure you route them through the cable route here, and for the top part, the sensor, just route it up through the top there. That filament cutter is quite simple, well at least it should be. Should just go back in place there once I actually get this to move. Maybe I should probably loosen that screw a little bit more. Make it a bit easier to get it put back in, and then some way, somehow, some shape, that filament cutter will go back in place. Oh, it sits higher up than I expected. So the filament cutter basically sits in that little groove here, right above my fingernail, right up in there. So when we twist it in, the filament cutter will sit in there, and then you just tighten up that black little screw there. So I'll tighten that up, and I'll put that PTFE tube back in as well. So that PTFE tube will basically clip in the top here, and then clip into the actual sensor unit itself. And then that's all pretty much all done. Now we do have a bit of a drama, a bit of a dilemma. I've used some, what's a brand? Sunlu, I think it was, the Sunlu filament. And now I think I've got a blockage in my AMS after pulling out the filament by force, which I probably shouldn't have done. But yeah, I've kind of stuffed up there, so I've got to check the AMS to see what's going on. Put all this back together, and with any luck we can resume printing, fingers crossed, and we'll go from there.